vested in me, I hereby declare this meeting of the Conshohocken Borough Council duly open and ready to conduct any business that comes before it. First item on the agenda is land use matters, public hearings and ordinances. The first item is consider granting conditional use approval for 826, 828 Fayette Street. Mr. Peters?
Thank you, President Leonard. If we could go on the record, please. This is the scheduled date and time for a decision on the application Z-2020-01. It is the application of Eyeball Properties, LLC, for the property located at 826 Fayette Street. As council will recall, it is a conditional use application for approval to extend the existing eye doctor's office at 828 Fayette Street to 826 Fayette Street. The record in this matter was closed at council's first meeting in February, so this evening, if you are inclined, all that is before you is consideration of whether or not to grant the application. If you are inclined to grant the application, my recommendation would be that approval be conditioned on the representations made at the hearing, again, at your first meeting in February.
So I would need a motion to approve granting conditional use approval for 826, 828 Fayette Street, if no one has any questions.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
With that, we will close the record, and I don't know if the applicant is here or not, but a notice of decision will issue tomorrow. Thank you.
I don't see him.
The next item on the agenda is the Pennsylvania State Firemen's Convention presentation. Jackie Pierce and John Hliniak from Plymouth. If you could come up, please.
Good evening.
Good evening, John.
In the file, we want to go.
Would you guys be more comfortable at the table with the microphone?
That might help.
Okay.
With me tonight, I have Jackie Pierce, Mike Gingling, John Droz, Kristen Davis, Jack Haliniak, and in the back there is Frank Barton. They're members from both the Conshohocken Fire Company No. 2 and Plymouth Fire Company. And we'd like to come before you and ask for your support for us to hold the 2020 State Firemen's Convention. 2022, sorry. Maybe this is where you ought to take over. So, I think Jack has some more information that he can fill you in on.
Thank you, John.
Good evening, Jack.
Takes a lot of planning. Don't get started in 2020. Madam President, members of council, my name is Jack Haliniak. I'm with the Plymouth Fire Company. And as John said, we're here tonight. The two fire companies have formed a joint organization committee in the hopes of getting the state's okay to hold the 2022 State Firemen's Convention and Parade. A little background. The Plymouth Fire Company, in conjunction with Conshohocken, held the parade and convention here in the area in 2006. It's been a while. What started as an idea earlier in the summer, some of our younger members, these are members that were teenagers in the fire company back in 2006, and they remembered that it was quite an event. So they started prodding us old guys, do you think we can do it again? Can you do it again? I'm looking at them like, a little crazy, but kicked around. I realized these guys were serious. So I tried to explain, as those who were around, who really were involved, like Frank, back in 2006. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a good partner. So we kicked around, and we said, well, obviously, it worked well with Conshohocken. So first thoughts came to our mind was, of course, Conshohocken Fire Company No. 2. Why? Well, the camaraderie between the two fire companies, the cooperation, is outstanding over the last 10 years. I think Fire Chief Gunning will attest to that. Both fire companies have a lot of same members. A lot of our members are members there and vice versa. I myself happen to be a life member of both Conshohocken No. 2 Fire Company and the Plymouth Fire Company No. 1. So, both fire companies got a history of fiscal responsibility and conservatism. Seemed like a great idea. So we met, actually it was funny because I approached Jackie about it at the fire prevention show here in Conshohocken, if she'd be interested. After she fainted and got back up, we had many meetings together on what it would take. So step one was for both fire companies to agree they wanted to take a shot at hosting this, co-hosting it. Both fire companies agreed. Step two, in order to approach the state, we need the support of the municipalities, and we need letters of support to submit our application, if you will. So Monday night, we met with Plymouth Township Council at their work session and got their support for the project. So here we are tonight, looking for the same. So why state convention? So I started asking some of our members, why do you want to hold it? And surprisingly, outside of the good times that can be had during a convention, they came up with some interesting reasons. To promote camaraderie, fellowship, friendship amongst the fire companies, both local and across the state. To show that the volunteer spirit is very much alive within Plymouth and Conshohocken communities. And of course, the economic benefit to the local business establishments, the eating, drinking places, et cetera, et cetera. So, we formed a committee to try to get started. Okay? And that's why we're here tonight. We'll answer any questions, but just to give you an idea of what we're looking to do this, I believe the exact dates are the 21st, 22nd, 23rd, and 24th of September 2022. The convention really kicks off on that Wednesday. The types of events that are held, obviously, there's a convention hotel. Back in 2006, the convention hotel was the DoubleTree up in Plymouth Meeting. It's a rather pricey, big hotel. Well, as everything nowadays, things have gotten a little smaller. The number of people attending these conventions is down a little bit, so we'll probably wind up at a smaller venue, which will save us money. So, of course, there's going to be fundraising involved, and that's why you get started this early. We got the better part of 2.5 years to, do some fundraising. Obviously, we'll do direct contact mailing and meetings with local businesses, both in Plymouth and Conshohocken Borough. There's usually a large ad book associated with the convention, which brings in some money. And of course, there's also events. Back in 2006, many of the establishments, restaurants, had special nights where we showed up with members and, did everything from 10 bar to sell T-shirts. And they, cooperated with proceeds from the evening. So there are the types of fundraisers that would be. We think we've got the help. We think both fire companies are really committed to this, okay? There are obviously meetings. Last time we held the convention, there were some dignitaries that showed up. The governor showed up back in 2006. I'd love to see the governor show up again. We'll try to do things like that, okay? We, try not to make it too political, obviously. But 2006 was an election year, so Ed Rendell showed up, Lynn Swan showed up. If you remember, he actually ran for governor in this state at one time. So, it's a great parade. They haven't had many of them recently. It's starting to come back a little bit. The 2021 parade and convention will be in Limerick Township. So we decided to try to continue the tradition by 2022, and hopefully someone else will step up to the plate and continue it. It kind of died for a while. The 2015 convention was postponed because of the Pope's arrival. It turned out that the convention was to be held in Tinicum Township, and of course that was ground zero for that event, and it was canceled, and really no one picked it up since then. So we're trying to get that back, trying to get that good feeling back. Looking at some special things, we actually have an avenue, once we get the okay from the state, if we get your support and the state's support, we actually have a chance of bringing Budweiser Clydesdales back to Conshohocken, which in itself is quite a draw, okay? We don't know, can't guarantee that yet, but we do have a connection that might be able to help us with something like that. So, that's it in a nutshell, long-winded nutshell, but anyone knows me knows it's not going to be a short speech. Questions?
Where would the parade be held?
The parade, right now we're looking at the same route we did in 2006, which would start the parade in Plymouth at Overhill and Caldwell,
Okay.
come up Caldwell past the Plymouth Fire Station, through the neighborhood, Sandwood, Pastel, right on North Lane, right on Butler Pike at North Lane, and head straight down Butler Pike and Fayette Street to First and Fayette, past the Conshohocken Fire Company number 2, and end at the end of the business district, hanging a left onto East First Avenue. That's what we anticipate the parade route to be.
And it wouldn't be anything like the one they have down the shore in September?
I've been to a couple of those, no. I think if you do some research, you will find that the problems, there weren't any, even during the convention parade. George, of course, wasn't chief back then, but I'm sure he remembers the parade. I believe James Doherty was chief then, Carmen Penton in Plymouth. We spoke to John Merciades, who's, of course, the chief in Plymouth, and he remembers that there was very little trouble. Now, there's a lot of planning has to happen between now and then, besides fundraising. I mean, there's a complete emergency management plan that we put together between the two municipalities. There's an EMS plan that'll be put together between the two municipalities. It's funny because when I was talked into, trying to put this together a little bit, I remembered, because I was the co-chair of the 2006 parade convention, and I remembered I had a binder, and I kept everything in it. What happened to that binder? God, believe it or not, I went through the archives up in the firehouse, and I found that blue binder. So we got a good start. We've got all the documentation, all the letters, everything we had, okay, from then. So that's good. Any other questions?
What are you looking at for police coverage? What are you looking for in police coverage?
Police coverage? Well, that becomes part of the plan. I mean, we would sit down, obviously, with the two police chiefs and see how they want to do it. Last time there was a complete command center set up in the parking lot of our firehouse. George knows what I mean obviously by field comm. They brought the mobile communication center down to our firehouse. We, of course, send out letters in the area because the parade will form there. That's where people will form in the streets. The trucks will be parked in the streets there and then wind up somewhere down there at the end of the parade. And you send out letters. We had it set up back then where there was a hotline number to the command center. If somebody had to get out of their house, because streets are going to be closed in the neighborhood, and they're going to be blocked, we made a point that we would get people out. I mean, obviously for an emergency, but even if it was just a matter of, baby needed milk, we would do those things. So that was the plan back then, and we can't see why it won't work now. But
Except
no,
we
we
have a
would
lot
sit
more
down.
people.
There'd be plenty of meetings. But when this is said and done, George's going to be tired of meeting.
I was here in 2006. It was, these things can be manpower intensive, obviously, because there's a lot of people. It's a big parade, But there was, I don't know what you were talking about that goes on down the shore. I'm not familiar with that. But I can tell you, there was a lot of discussion at the time about a beer garden in Sutcliffe Park. A lot. And a lot of concern with that. There was zero problem.
I remember, it went very well.
What we did there,
Bizarre.
George
We're
could
not,
attest to.
like Irish Weekend.
Oh, Lord have
That's
mercy.
because that's when it is.
We
It's
fenced
more-
in, this is for the refreshments after the parade.
Right.
It wound up at
These are like
Sutcliffe Park, of
serious
course, we got a,
environment.
permit from the state to do it. We fenced in the basketball
Fire
course.
owners.
And we had guards, if you will, posted at the entrances. You had to be 21 to get in, you couldn't take anything out, and it worked out real well.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say it'll be there this time. I mean, it's still a great place to have it, and we'll see, okay? But that's the way it worked back then,
Right.
after the
What
parade.
year was that?
2006.
Approximately how many people came to the last convention?
Okay, that was huge. It was our 100th anniversary. It was the height of convention activity. That was the heyday, okay? We don't know, because there's been such a downturn. There hasn't been a state convention parade in several years. I don't, obviously it'll probably pick up a little bit with Limerick. Limerick's bringing it back. So, that hopefully will get everyone excited about the convention again, okay? How many people? It's hard to say. I mean, we had a lot then,
Right.
and it went off pretty well.
And invitations would go out to all the fire companies
Oh,
in
yeah.
the state?
The state association will give us, throughout the state.
Okay.
Now, to be honest with you, okay, a lot of fire companies from upstate don't come down.
Right.
Okay.
We're a huge state, yeah.
It's
Right.
most of the big parades that have been associated with the state convention have been down this way. And Conshohocken has been one place they love to come. It was here in 2006, it was here in 80, 77, 74. I'm dating myself a little bit now.
That's all right, we're right there with you.
You confirm the dates again in 2022. It's September 21st through 24th.
Yeah, that week,
And the parade will be on what date?
Saturday.
Saturday, the 24th? Okay. And what you need from us tonight is basically just a motion to approve support for the joint
Yes.
committee for Conshohocken and Plymouth? Okay?
That's what we're looking for. I mean, we would just need a letter of support, from the borough. Last time, I believe, it was signed by the borough manager and township manager in Plymouth. I actually still have those letters if you want to see them, but I'm sure you could do a letter of support in your
You just
sleep.
need a motion.
Yep, I just need a motion from council
I'll
that
make
would
the
issue
motion to
support.
support the Pennsylvania State Fire Convention.
Okay.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Yes,
One
John.
thing while I'm thinking about it, the convention's 4 days, but Wednesday, most of the delegates arrive, so not a whole lot happens. The state association might have an executive meeting, and that happens at a hotel, which we have to figure out which hotel we're going to use.
Right.
Thursday and Friday is mostly state association meetings. There might be a banquet or two at night, but again, that happens inside. The big thing is the parade on Saturday.
Okay.
That's where we need, that's a whole animal on itself.
Right,
The
right.
convention itself actually takes place mostly in the hotel, am I correct?
Yes,
Jack?
yes, the
Yeah.
meetings are at the hotel.
So, there's not a lot that happens in Plymouth or Conshohocken during those first 3 days.
Okay. Thank you.
It would be nice to see it come back for you. It really would, for all the firemen all over.
Job well done.
Anything else you need from us?
I don't think so. I think we're
Certainly
good.
appreciate your support.
You're welcome.
Hey, without
Stephanie,
you,
I will.
We'll be in touch.
Brittany has my email.
That's Brittany right there.
You're
She's got
Brittany.
it.
Okay, say I don't know the faces yet. I'm
One or
getting
the
there.
other, yep.
I don't know whether this is good or bad, but if they can't get a hold of you, they can get,
That-
they get a hold of me.
Any-
So I don't know if that's good or bad.
Anything you can take off my plate, John, would be, I will be retired in 2 more months, so this will probably be my full-time job for the next 2 years. But
Good luck with that.
again, thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay,
Thank
I
you.
think
Thank
when
you.
this is all said and done, you'll be very proud of the experience and what happens.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. The next item on the agenda is the fire stipend program update with Leo Costello, Assistant Fire Chief, if you can come up. Good night, guys.
thank you. Thank you.
Good evening,
Good
thank you. First off, on behalf of the department, we'd like to thank you for supporting this initiative. It's shaping up to be very successful. We completed our first quarter on the 29th of February, having started it in the beginning in December. And as it looks right now, we have about 36 people signed up, and that does not include the fire police who were just looped into this program and about halfway through February. So we're still looking to get all their information and data backed into the program. Numbers-wise, for participation, we look like we're on track. The system works on points. You gain points by doing certain, accomplishing certain hours of service or accomplishing certain schools or trainings and stuff. Right now, we're averaging, the average person sits in, just basically in the first 2 months, is sitting in the middle to high 20-point line. So our decision to base this on 100 points for the year looks like it was a good one. With the first quarter being complete, we're looking at doing our first internal audit of the program to make sure all our numbers are right and to make sure we have collected all the information successfully. The other thing we'd like to thank council for is we found a piece of software, a web-based management program that we talked to Ray about, and Ray approved us using funds out of the program to purchase that. That is taking a lot of the paperwork off of us. It's web-based. Guys who are available go on, they sign in, they put in the hours they're available on what particular days. They can do it a day in advance, a couple hours in advance, or they can plan out a whole month if they like. That program also creates a profile for each member that tracks their training and such, to the point that as you get certifications, you can scan them, and it keeps a scanned copy as part of your profile. It's a very good program. I believe some ambulance companies are actually using it as their payroll program. So it's good. We've also, in that program, are adding the hours that the paid personnel are working so that the guys know who's on and when and what hours. So it's been helpful for that during the day, because we have had a couple people that are available during the day that are signing up for shifts during the day.
Good.
So thank you very much, and it is being a successful program.
What's the feedback from your volunteers that have joined the program?
A lot of them seem to like it. There's still a few that are a little apprehensive that we're convincing them, yeah, this is a good thing. It really, in the long run, hasn't changed how we do business too much. It's just giving us a better tool to ensure who's available, knowing knowing we're going to have at least one staff truck. The ultimate goal of this, we're hoping over the next couple months that we can look at this and say, yeah, we're, out of a day's time, we have these blocks of times that we're guaranteeing a staff truck coming out of one of the stations, or perhaps both, and even into the weekends. With the St. Patrick's Parade coming up, there's a memo's gone out that, sign up, guys, we need people during the day for this. Tell us what blocks of time you're going to be available and what blocks of time you'd like us to leave you alone so you can enjoy the parade. So that's a helpful tool there, that we don't have to guess, you got a big event going on. And like that with the convention, it'll be another tool that'll help with that a couple years down the road. So.
It's great.
Leo, how many police are fire police?
Looks like right now we've had 3 or 4 reach out that are into the program. So we're coordinating with Carol right now on that. So, and with them getting into it so late, we're in the process of backdating some of their information in, so that they get credit for back into December.
Great. That's great.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank
Thanks for all your hard work. The next item on the agenda is the Community Center HVAC Capital Project Presentation. Isaac Kessler and Angelo, I'm not even,
You're not the only one trying to.
okay.
Persichilli.
Thank you for that. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you, Madam President, Borough Council. Good evening. For those that don't know me, I'm Isaac Kessler. I'm a project engineer and manager with Remington and Vernick Engineers at 9th and Fayette here in the borough. With me tonight is Angelo Persichilli, one of our lead engineers in our MEP department. And we've come here to provide an overview of the proposed improvements to the HVAC at the community center at the Fellowship House. So with that, I'll turn it over to Angelo. We have a board there as well to present the update on the Fellowship House.
Slide over here. Can everyone hear me? All right? Yeah. Well, that voice carries. So let's see if I can make it work. So, as Isaac said, my name is Angelo Persichilli. I work in our MEP department, where we work generally with HVAC, plumbing, and electrical design for new and existing buildings. This project here is for air conditioning installation and electrical upgrades at the Fellowship House at your community center. Over here, we just have a floor plan. It's just a general overall floor plan of the community center. In blue here, this is where we will be installing the new air conditioning. This is the gym, and this area in orange is the electrical room where the electrical upgrades will be taking place. So in general, our scope of work for this job is to remove completely the existing heating-only rooftop unit that serves the gym, and we'll be installing 2 new heating and cooling rooftop units to serve that space. And electrically, we will be providing new electrical infrastructure to support that new air conditioning, and also be installing a portable generator connection so that, the building could utilize an emergency generator if
Right.
ever they need to. Put the solar real quick. Oh, one thing I should have mentioned, sorry. We do estimate that all this work will cost approximately $428,000. So,
Yay.
Sure, let me write you a check.
Oh,
You will, Anita.
now, keep in mind, that is a conservative budget estimate. Hopefully, bids come in lower than that. But, so just a little bit more detail about the scope for the gymnasium air conditioning. We are proposing to install 2 new gas-fired 20-ton package rooftop units.
Okay.
We'll be also providing all new ductwork in the gymnasium that's appropriately sized for the new airflow associated with the air conditioning. We will be providing the rooftop units with standalone user-friendly controls by means of a wall-mounted thermostat and humidistat in the gymnasium that any maintenance crew will be able to have access to. The units will be provided with active humidity control through means of hot gas reheat.
Okay.
This is a dehumidification feature that allows the units to, maintain an appropriate humidity level without overcooling the space. Because sometimes, there's periods throughout the year where it's not necessarily that hot outside. You might not think you need cooling, but it is a little humid, it's a little sticky outside, and this feature actually allows us to maintain, a good humidity without dumping a bunch of cool air into the
Right.
space. So these new units are also extremely energy efficient, and they're compliant with all the most up-to-date energy codes, including ASHRAE 90.1. A couple of those features are the variable speed motors for the fans, as well as modulating output capacity. This just makes sure that the unit is never putting out, more energy than it needs to meet the demand of the space. The units are also going to be provided with 100% economizer. So what that does is, again, if we're talking about a day that is not necessarily that cold or not that, it's not that hot, it's cooler outside and it's, a little drier, but you still have a cooling demand in the space. Say, there's a game going on or there's a lot of people, and we don't necessarily think of air conditioning in the fall or the winter, but in a space like this, it could be critical, and
Right.
We need air conditioning. So the way that economizer works is there's a sensor that kind of measures constantly the humidity and the temperature of the air outside.
Right.
And if there's a need for cooling and that air is sort of within that range, it'll utilize the outside air without utilizing the cooling at all, and basically you're getting what we like to call free cooling to treat the space. So, so this is just a little blow-up of the gym. The areas in blue here are the ductwork. We'll be routing the ductwork through the joists in the gymnasium. And you kind of see over here, we are showing the rooftop units. So these are actually on the roof. We will be reusing the existing penetrations that were left over from us taking out the exhaust fans. So
Okay.
we don't have to, we're going to limit the disturbance to the space by doing that. The units here will require a couple minor structural improvements. You're going to need to frame out in the area underneath the units so that they can crane on top of it. We're also going to be connecting to some existing gas piping in this area to serve these units. We're not running any gas lines out there, just whatever's from the unit to the existing gas main. Also, very important, we will be, in our spec, we include protection for the floor. So it means so that during construction, the contractor is supposed to lay down, I think we specified two layers of 3/4 inch plywood and a scratch protective layer so that there's no damage to the floor during construction. Down here, I got a couple pictures. The first one being just a general shot of what that rooftop unit looks like. Both rooftop units will be, the same unit, there'll just be two of them. And then here is just a detail of the ductwork installation with the diffusers. Now for the electrical upgrades, the first thing was just the electrical infrastructure for the new air conditioning. The good news was that the building, with its existing electrical service, has the capacity to handle adding this cooling load. Really all we need to do is provide a couple new power circuits and connect to existing spare breakers. We're not going to be doing any new power panels. We're about to increase the service size, that sort of thing. Now the portable generator docking station. So what this is going to do is going to allow the owner of the building to basically, if there's an emergency, anything goes on, they can wheel in, rent a emergency generator and plug it in. It's going to allow the building to be used as an emergency shelter. The docking station is going to be sized to support the entire building, and all it needs to operate on the owner's end is the manual transfer switch, which is just a switch that the owner uses. And the good thing about this is that it is that simple. They rent a generator, comes in, plug it in, flip the transfer switch. When you're done, flip the transfer switch off, wheel the generator away. If we didn't have this docking station, we need to get an electrician to come out. You'd have to, open up the service, tie this generator in, when it's over, come tie the generator out. And, in an emergency situation, who wants to have to, deal with that sort of headache? So, and then down here, this is just an aerial shot of the building, showing generally where the rooftop units are. And here's our docking station. We thought this was a nice area. It was convenient for two reasons. One, because the electrical room's right there, but also there's a nice grassy area where, it's kind of, the generator it's in a convenient spot for the generator to sit, when they come wheel it in and plug it in.
Okay.
So, that's really all I had, so I guess if you guys have any questions.
Isaac, can you just walk them through the process now? So we've finalized the schematic design phase, and we're moving on to what phase in the process, just so they understand how that's where we're going with the project. So design phase is complete. Next phase is construction documents and...
Correct,
okay.
yeah. The next phase with the design complete would be the preparation of the construction documents, the bid documents, and that would be advertised for public bid. And then once those are received, we'd go through the review of that to hopefully favorable numbers, provide a recommendation that fits within a price that the borough was agreeable with. The project that we went over here tonight, this had started back about 2016 for those that were familiar with it. So fast forward, almost 4 years now is what brought us to the overview that we have here tonight.
Okay.
So how many bids are you going to get for us?
We'd love at least 5 or so, but work like this, it's a little more specialized. It kind of ranges. We hope to get at least a few, just to have some good competitive pricing. But it's always a bit of a uncertain result when you put it out for public bid. But we'll hope for at least a few. Always shoot for 5, and that way you have a couple to compare with and get good competitive prices.
And what's the manufacturer of the units?
So
Angela?
Train, that's the basis of design.
What did he say?
Train.
They do most of it.
Right. I have a question for Stephanie and for Ray. All of these specs have been reviewed, and you're all happy with them, and
We're good. We're actually,
good.
in comparison to the 2016 attempt at the project,
Right.
we feel like we're more sound in terms of what's been provided in this. We know more about the community center and how it operates and what we need. We've done, Ray in particular and his team have been in the building, evaluated the
Right.
building. They know the building now. There's been more time to sort of accept the ownership of that facility. So yes, we're good with the specs. If there's anything that comes up in terms of when the construction documents are drafted,
Right.
again, they still have to get reviewed by the borough, so they'll be provided to us for review at that point.
What's a time frame
For a project this scale, what would a time frame be?
Yeah, so right now, we have, I think in our documents, we're thinking about 160 days. Now, that's
For the whole project?
That's from notice to proceed to close out.
Right.
I would say actual construction, so once the job's been awarded and contracts have been sort of ironed out, contractor's probably gonna take about a month or so to mobilize, get submittals approved, that sort of thing. And then we're probably looking at about 3 or so months to do the actual work. I mean, we do a lot of work of similar size with schools in particular, and they generally have no issues with, awarding it, or probably around the time that this might go out, getting it awarded in middle to late spring, getting construction started, once school lets out, and then they are done, buttoned up, and everything's good to go by the time school starts. So if we were to get started, within the next month or so, there shouldn't be an issue why this wouldn't be done before the next heating season.
But not the cooling season.
Yeah.
Just said that, sorry.
Yeah, you're not
It
gonna,
might be
you're
one
not
more
gonna
summer
have it
before
for
they
this
get the air
summer.
conditioning.
The work is
We
most
might
likely
use
going
it
to be
in
happening
September.
during summer.
Okay.
Sometime September.
Years ago, we didn't have much heat in the gym anyway.
Well,
We
no.
used to stick to the metal chairs.
Bob, Frank used to turn it off. We had heat, Frank wouldn't put it on.
No kidding. We didn't have the money to
Turn the
pay.
heat on.
We didn't have the money to pay for it.
I remember, we had air conditioning all year then.
So just as a reminder, this is an approved capital item
Right.
for the 2020 budget. Depending on what bids you get back, everyone should be ready, if it doesn't fall within the scope of what was budgeted for, that we might have to parcel out the project and to carry over to multiple years. So
Okay.
we're doing our due diligence in terms of thoroughly vetting what the schematics and the documents and the bidding needs to happen, and then we will keep you informed and up to date on next steps.
So just one clarifying question. For the backup generator, you're doing a docking station. We're not actually including a backup generator
Right.
in, okay.
So the docking station is just meant to be a means for if there is an emergency, the borough can rent the generator and come and plug it in.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And I really love that idea because that fits into our emergency management plan of having another shelter
Yes.
Right,
in any weather condition.
which we need.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else have any questions?
No.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Nice presentation, thank you. The next item on the agenda is 12 West 8th Avenue Zoning Hearing Board application. Mr. Johnson, our zoning officer, you come up. Good evening.
Hello.
Good evening.
Welcome.
Thanks. So I guess before we start, I'll just take the opportunity. I'd like to thank everyone for the opportunity to serve as your next zoning officer. I think everything is going well so far. I hope everyone else feels the same. Okay. Our first application that we're going to talk about tonight is with regard to 12 West 8th Avenue. The applicant is seeking a variance to allow them to use the residential property for short-term rentals through online rental services. As you can see, they're seeking the variance because, as outlined in the zoning code, residential rentals are permitted, but they are for periods longer than 30 days. There's also the uses for the short-term rentals, transient rentals, hotels, motels, beds and breakfasts are permitted. However, this type of use on residential property does not fall under any of those definitions. So with that, I'll turn it over to George Ozarowski for the applicant.
Good evening. Thank you for seeing us tonight. As Mr. Johnson said, my name is George Ozarowski. I think most of you all know me by now. The property is located at 12 West 8th Street. It's in the residential district, Mr. Johnson said. My client is Mike Soroka and I'm Matt Donnelly are the principals of Keller Williams here in town on 9th and Fayette. I'm sure you all know them as well. And they bought the property and did some extensive rehab on the property and fixed it up. So it's a beautiful property. As you can see, it has 2 cars, it has 3 bedrooms. It's a single-family residence as it stands. They are looking to use it as a short-term rental, such as an Airbnb, any of those type of uses. The thought behind this would be it could be used consistently with the old Borough Hall, specifically for events. If you got married, the thought would be, hey, what a great spot to be used as, the bride and groom could be there as opposed to staying at a hotel. So that was the concept behind it. As you know, on 8th Avenue, it's the only house that actually faces 8th Avenue on that block there. We believe there would be plenty of parking because unlike most houses that use the inside of the garage spots for their personal stuff, there will be no personal stuff in the garage. So there's 2 spots there, and then there's 2 spots in front of the garage as well for parking. It's not a very big building. It's only maybe 1,600 square feet. So it's not like it's an area that you're going to be putting a bunch of people in or anything like that. As far as the uses go, they would have a Ring video out front for video. They would have cameras inside in case there was any need to, view what's happening for security reasons. They also own a maintenance company that would be there to maintain the property if there's anything that happens to it as far as breaking or anything like that goes. They would also use a company that would turn over the property. So if somebody came and went, their job and they're hired to just kind of switch over the property, clean it, maintain it, and get it ready for the next person. Briefly, to go over the property, this is the property here. As you can see, it has a walkway that goes up into the house. Mm-hmm. This is the front of the house. Mm-hmm. I don't know if any of you folks have seen it since it's been rehabbed. This is a picture of the inside, the main floor. As you can see, it's not terribly big. It does have a kitchen here. This is the finished kitchen. Again, it's not a terribly big spot. You wouldn't be able to have like parties there or anything like that. This is the basement. This is some historical significance that Mike could probably get into.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So we bought this property in 2016. It was distressed property. And upon going in there and deciding what we wanted to do to it, we did some research and realized it was part of one of the original farmhouses that were part of that big farm in that part of town in the 1800s. And I contacted Jack Cole. And as soon as I contacted him, he goes, I know this property. We featured it in his book of Conshohocken. And we actually decided, since it's so unique, we wanted to restore the trough where they used to have the milk and everything for the original farm for the cows. And then we put brick, Chicago-style brick down there to actually make it either a wine cellar or a cigar lounge or something like that. Very unique. So, as George said, it's not a big house. It's only 1,500 square feet, so it's limited to the amount of people that can actually utilize it. But I think it's very unique to restore the character of these old homes in town where it's just knock stuff down and, put new up and stuff like that. So that was part of our thought process when we bought the house, is wanted to restore it and really showcase what the property was built for.
Just a few other quick photographs, just to give you some idea. This is one of the bedroom spaces, and this is a bathroom. Yep. And again, these aren't terribly critical to the issue, but I just wanted you to see that they've done a really good job fixing the property up. And if you look at the basement, it would be a nice area for like an event or like a small venue or some type of family event if you wanted to rent it for a special occasion. Again, the concept here was to be in conjunction with the old Borough Hall. It's the only way it makes sense, to be honest with you. It wouldn't make sense virtually anywhere else in the borough. And Mike has talked to the people at Airbnb, and they basically said, they looked around.
Yeah.
They took a look at your borough and said, really, this is like the only place that really makes sense to do this from an economic standpoint.
Yep.
I mean, if you think about the use, a lot of times the place could be empty. I mean, it's not going to be rented. I'm sure Mike would like to be rented 365 days a year, but clearly that's not going to happen. So it's actually the intensity on the neighborhood is probably less than somebody lived there every day, because they're not going to be able to live there every day.
And speaking of the neighborhood, has anyone spoken to anyone that lives?
Have you talked to the neighbors?
So Brian Pierre, he's a client of mine, and also Dr. Neal. And I've also spoken with Gary Jonas, and Gary Jonas loves the idea. He bought the old Borough Hall.
No, I was
house
talking about
properties.
actual residents, not business
No, well, the
owners.
people to the left that's an investment property, that's multifamily. So,
On Forest Street.
Right.
yeah.
People
so-
that run on Forest.
On Forest, no, we have not contacted any of those people because the people, like I said, immediately adjacent to us are all rentals.
And the garages are gonna be used for parking, not storage.
Correct. Yep. They're empty now, and that's where they're going to stay that way.
The one thing the pictures, you're gonna have to obviously furnish it to have it.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
But there's no use,
Yeah.
as I said, like, unlike a normal person would store their stuff in the garage, there'll be nobody living there to store their
Correct.
stuff there with.
So to give you an idea, to furnish it's about $15,000. So it's going to be set up for hopefully corporate rentals or somebody that's in town. It's not going to be just, college kids coming in and out for a night or something like that. That's not what kind of property we want to have. Plus, we don't want to deal with damages and complaints from neighbors. So we want to make sure that we're working in conjunction with what the neighborhood is suited for. My office is on 9th and Fayette. I'm on top of the BB&T building, and my property management company is on 6th and Fayette Street. So we have access to the property at any given time, and it's important for safety that we have all the security measures that are in place there too, both for the tenants, the neighbors, and us as the owners. So we've already contacted our insurance company, and if this were used to be granted, they would cover that as well. So from a liability standpoint, that would already be taken care of.
And Mike, you live on 10th, right?
I live on East 10th, yeah, so I literally walk to all of my businesses in my home, I could walk to this property.
So, Mike, you're saying there's 3 bedrooms. What would you anticipate the capacity would be? 6 people?
I mean, they're small bedrooms, so I would say the capacity would, at the most, would be 6, but I can't see it really being even that many, maybe 3 or 4 tops. Because you got 2 bathrooms, the downstairs is finished, and you have that area downstairs with the basement with the trough. So you're not going to accommodate a lot of people. There's not going to be big parties there. It's not
Is there a
conducive.
window or a doorway from the basement?
Oh, yeah. So there is, that's how you actually walk out through the garage. So there's 2 windows on the side, and then you walk out to the garage right from the finished basement. So there's 2 means of egress.
Mike, how long, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. So just curious, you renovated this home.
Yes.
And you could easily successfully sell that.
Yep.
Or rented?
Yep.
And you can do that versus the approach that you're taking, where we're saying it's difficult at this point even to predict what kind of utilization that you're going to have, and there's so much more involved because there's a flow of tenants, if you will. So what's the upside? Why would you rather go that way?
Well, a couple things. We like to keep our properties as investments. So it's not just about buying it and trying to sell it. We definitely have had renters in there for a year. I just feel like there's a need for this type of property. If you don't want to stay at the Marriott, you want to stay in town and you want to walk to the restaurants and just have walkability, there's not really many options to stay in town. So I feel like this would be a great opportunity to showcase, the local businesses that are around there and just get some publicity. Yeah, so I think it'll be good.
Do you have any idea, and I don't know this, what kind of success we've had at the bed and breakfast over by Marywood?
You know what? It's funny because their open house a couple weeks ago, I actually walked down, and it's the first time I was in that property, and they did a tremendous job.
Right.
I was blown away by it, actually. And they said that they've been very, very good with getting, especially during different weekends or different events that have been happening, they've been pretty good with getting booked. So, I figured that would be another option for us, not to say that we would always have that. If the numbers worked out where we would keep a long-term rental, maybe 6 months or a year, that would be an option. But it's nice to have that opportunity and use if we decide to do that.
Is there plans to collaborate with, what's the,
Valley Forge?
Oh, Hal Properties?
yes,
Yeah, actually, he said, let me know, because I would love to be able to put people in there. He's a good friend of ours, great business guy. We respect him a lot, and we value his opinion. And as soon as we came to him when we had the idea, he's like, that would be a fantastic idea. I would love to be able to have people rent the space where he is and to be able to stay right across the street.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Mike, how long has it been vacant?
It was vacant for about a month. Now, we have tenants in there now. So we have it currently rented, so when their time is up, then we would be able to utilize the usage, because I don't have any idea how long this process would take. So we didn't want to just hold it vacant while we were going through this process.
Okay.
But it's easily rentable even for 6 months. It's just a very easily rentable property.
Okay.
And it's one story too, so it's, one story meaning is you don't have to go up steps once you get into the house. You have to go down, but it's not something that if somebody had some type of disability, they wouldn't have to climb flights and flights of steps. It's pretty easy on one floor.
And it's a short-term rental in there right now?
No, it's long-term.
Okay.
So it's long-term.
A year.
Yeah, it's a year.
So obviously for council and learning to deal with this whole concept of Airbnbs, which is concerning to all of us over time.
Right.
What do you see as any upside for the borough and the neighbors, not the business neighbors, the actual neighbors?
Well, I mean, a couple things. So it's a good question. I would say at this point, for us to establish a precedence in town that if you guys were to make some type of requirements, that they would meet the specifications of what you guys were looking for, because, people do that on their own for their own properties, and you never know what type of people are coming in and out of someone's own house. Since we have a property management company in town, our name is reputation is very important to us. We're not going anywhere. We buy a lot of properties in town. So if we could set a precedence with the borough and say, listen, these are the requirements that people would have to meet if they would even think about doing it, hopefully we could work together in conjunction with giving you feedback on a regular basis of how this works. Because the last thing we want to do is have a problem with the neighbors or the borough or anybody. So we take that very, very seriously.
And the last thing we want is a lot of Airbnbs, honestly. So I think for the administration, I know that there is a lot that we need to look at for Airbnbs. I think it's something that we should do sooner than later. I know we can't do it particularly for this, and we do have things to suggest for this one-time one, but I think it's something that as an administration, we can't put off and starting to do.
Yeah, so we've been working section by section through the zoning ordinance, and eventually it will be presented to council for all of our recommendations in terms of revisions to the zoning ordinance. One of those suggested revisions is the topic of the Airbnb. So no, that will not be in place prior to this application going to zoning.
Right.
I think what you could do, as Mike is saying, if you're setting a precedent, is set certain conditions and ask that the applicant work directly with administration and the borough's solicitor to come to some sort of agreement on those conditions, which would then be presented to the zoning hearing board as a recommendation while they are hearing the case regarding the variance, if that seems fair.
I was thinking the same thing when you said it. I mean, we're obviously, we want to work with the borough, not argue with you or fight with you. And if you have reasonable conditions that you would like to see, or you envision for your ordinance that you're thinking about passing, we'd be more than welcome to discuss that with you and probably agree to, like all of them, you have a very reasonable staff, and as long as I know what they are, so I can't blindly agree to something I don't know what they are, but as long as they're reasonable, I'm sure they will be. We have no problems with doing that. Again,
Yeah, I mean,
it was kind of a timing thing. We didn't know when that was going to happen, so it's kind of like we didn't want to not proceed with it, and
Mike,
Well,
can I ask
I'd like to work with the borough, and let me be your liaison as far as feedback and how it's working and what you guys like and don't like, and what we can change, not change. I mean, I'm here to work, like George said, work with you guys and figure out something that's going to make you guys happy too. And, if I'm the guinea pig, so to speak, of how it all works, I'll be more than happy to just work in conjunction with you.
Can I ask a question? With your industry background and with the research that you were doing for Airbnb?
Yes.
Is there information out there that Airbnbs lower property values in the neighborhoods where they're putting these? Have you come up with anything that talks about that?
I haven't, because the Airbnbs that I know that people do are in the city of Philadelphia, right? And there's no way to gauge or track how that's going to be. People just do it. right, and hope that they don't get caught. So there really isn't any, that I can find any positive or negative as far as property values go. But the fact that we put so much money into the property and made it to the state that it is, it would be advantageous for us to keep it as nice as possible and make the neighbors friends of ours and be happy, versus being in a fight with anybody. That's not what we're looking to do.
Okay, I know the area that you're in. My concern are the neighbors on Forest, and I think it would be very prudent of you to at least reach out to them so that when they see people coming and going, if this goes through, that they understand what it is.
Yep.
Because sometimes when people see that happening, they think drug deal.
Right.
And we don't need that happening.
Yep.
And they've already had enough problems with Hal being on the corner
Gotcha.
and parking and, I just don't want to see them all getting upset because some of them are elderly.
Sure, absolutely. And that's a big concern for us.
But I really think you need to reach out to them.
Sure.
We would do
Thanks.
that before the zoning.
They-
Kind of find, like, if you do it too far before
Okay.
the zone, then they forget. So if you kind of do it
Yep.
kind of before the zoning hearings, it's kind of fresh in everyone's mind.
They're going to be notified anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Yeah.
Mr. Jonas also said, obviously, their businesses close, 5, 6 o'clock. So if somebody needed extra parking, he'd be more than happy to accommodate that for us, too.
But unless it's rented for an event that night, it won't be
Well, that
closed
would be
night. So
something.
the events
Right.
are what
If somebody
cause
was
more of a
staying
parking
there.
issue than the daily business itself.
Right.
It's more
And that's why I was
events.
focusing on the 4 spots. I mean, it's
Right.
not, if we have 4 spots, I really should.
Wait, you said you have 4 spots? Where do you have 4 spots? You have 2 in the garage?
And 2 in front.
Right.
2 in the
front.
driveway.
Because
And
they-
No, you
As
can't
they
fit them
s-
in the driveway.
No.
Yeah.
They block the pavement.
So there is, the tenants that were
Is your
previously there.
apron big enough to
Yeah, it is,
accommodate
it
them?
is. So you can
Because
actually.
I've walked by there and
Well, not for a truck. So we would have to put restrictions on who would park there. So
Okay.
if you had,
Okay.
if you had a regular car, you could actually park in between the curb cut and the sidewalk. But if you had a truck, it would obviously hang over. So we would have to make that very, very clear
Okay.
to anybody that would be renting at, that if they're going to use those spots, there's a restriction on
what
what.
it fits.
Exactly.
We'll place
Okay.
it in the conditions that we'll be negotiating.
Okay.
Exactly, yep.
Does anyone else have any questions?
Thanks, Mike. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
You guys be in touch?
Yep.
Great.
The next item on the agenda is 110 and 161 Washington Street Zoning Board hearing application. Mr. Johnson, you're back again.
Okay, so this application is 110, 161, which is 7 Tower Bridge and 8 Tower Bridge respectively. What the applicant, 7 Tower Bridge, is seeking to do is to put up temporary signage advertising the new development, the building currently under construction. And that signage would be both on 7 Tower and the 8 Tower Bridge. A combination of some pole signs next to the bridge as well as banner signs on the building under construction and the parking garage next door. What they would need relief for is for the number of signs on the properties, the size of the signs, and the fact that the 7 Tower Bridge advertising would also be off premises on the 8 Tower Bridge property. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ross Weiss.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Hi,
Mr.
Ross.
Weiss. How are you?
How are you?
We're good.
So the Borough bird is a crane. I said that when we had a meeting once. I now look across the bridge and I see 3 cranes. And it's, I think it's pretty exciting and you're to be congratulated.
For some people.
Yeah, that's true.
We're here tonight just to review with you our application to the Zoning Hearing Board for temporary signage. The signage that we want to talk to you about tonight that we're proceeding to the Zoning Hearing Board on later this month would be signage that would only be up until 1 year from the date that the first occupancy permit is issued or December 31st, 2022. The signage that we're requesting is not necessarily to advertise what's taking place, but to enable people that have to come to the construction site to be able to find it. The temporary signs that we're requesting are signs that have previously been approved by the borough over the years as the construction has taken place. The reason why the signage is so important is because the construction will take place on property that is adjacent to the bridge, but below the bridge, and in this instance, 460 feet from the bridge and on the river. The vehicles that travel across the Fayette Street Bridge don't abide by any speed limit. They go rather quickly. So the reason for the number of signs is to try and alert the traveling public, which includes workers that come to the site, deliveries that come to the site, and prospective tenants that are trying to find the site or see the location. The signs that we are requesting are can I have the next slide, Tiffany, please? The first sign that we'll talk about is the sign, and my pointer doesn't work on yours, but that's okay. The photographer is standing on the bridge looking towards Philadelphia with the Schuylkill River on the right-hand side. And what Elizabeth, the Castleman, has done, who is with me here tonight, is superimposed on this photograph the anticipated steel structure that's under construction. And what we're requesting permission to do is to put up an 800 square foot sign. You'll see the example of the sign on the right-hand side of what's projected, and that would go in between approximately the third or fourth floor of the steel once we reach the fourth floor. That would only stay at that location until the steel is finished and the rest of the construction of the building begins. We thought that that sign would stay there longer, but when we met with the general contractor, he pointed out to us that sign's going to be in the way and we can't build a building if that sign is there. So the second thing that we're requesting from the zoning hearing board is permission to, when the sign is in the way, which we estimate will be sometime in this September, to be able to move that sign to the left onto the 8-tower bridge garage. And if you look at the projection, you will see the 8-tower bridge garage, and that's where that 800 square foot sign would be relocated to. Stephanie, can I see the next sign? This is the Fayette.
Tonight you are, for sure.
Tiffany.
Brittany.
That's all right, Rob.
Brittany.
It's okay.
I'm not wearing my glasses. I'm sorry, Brittany. I am now standing below the bridge on the Philadelphia side of the bridge, looking across to West Conshohocken, and you can see the two pole signs. The pole sign closest to us, and these signs are 36 feet in height, the pole sign closest to us is already there. That is on the 8-tower bridge property right now. That was used when the 8-tower bridge property was under construction to put up the same type of temporary banner sign that we're requesting today. And that sign is 2 feet by 7 feet, the banner, but there are two banners. So that would be a total of 28 square feet. If you look behind the first pole sign, the pole which is on the 8-tower bridge property, there is a second pole that has the exact same signs, but that would be on the 7-tower bridge property. Now, I would expect or anticipate that one of you would ask me, well, why do you need the same sign in two locations right at the same place at the same elevation? And my answer has to be that because of how fast people travel on the bridge, we are, and recognizing that they travel in both directions, across the bridge to West Conshohocken and vice versa, that the one sign can be missed. So the second sign gives us the opportunity to at least identify where the project is. Can I have the next? This is an aerial view that shows us the Fayette Street Bridge from the bottom, crossing the Schuylkill into Conshohocken. You see 8 Tower Bridge and the 8 Tower Bridge garage. You see the rendering, the elevation that you might recall from all the meetings we had last year, but that is the 7 Tower Bridge once constructed. And the 2 pole signs, to put them into perspective, are just adjacent to the Fayette Street Bridge. And the one closest to the river would be on 7 Tower Bridge, and the one adjacent to it, to the left of it, would be the one on 8 Tower Bridge. 8 Tower Bridge has authorized 7 Tower Bridge, the ownership of 7 Tower Bridge, to file the application for the zoning relief, and has approved the application and has agreed to 2 things. One, that the banners can be put on the pole that is existing on the 8 Tower Bridge property, and 2, that the 800 square foot banner that will be on the steel structure can be moved over to the 8 Tower Bridge garage when it can no longer be on the steel structure. Lastly, this is not the only construction site in the borough, as I just mentioned, which leads to a little bit more confusion when people try to find the construction site. Somebody coming to the borough and looking for the construction site would immediately figure, well, there it is, but that may not be it because that's the Keystone site. The Keystone site is at grade, and the Keystone site has the fence signage that runs the entire length of the property. The signage that we're requesting cannot be the same kind of sign because of the bridge and because we're below the bridge, and therefore we're requesting the 2 pole signs and the 800 square foot banner sign on the building 460 feet from the bridge.
40 by 40.
Pardon me?
40 by 40,
It's 40 by 20, 800.
800.
Are there any banners on the existing pole right now?
There's no banners on the existing pole right now. There is a banner sign on the 8 Tower Bridge building. You might recall that approximately a year ago, I was here and somewhat scolded because the client, who was the investor in both 8 and 7 Tower Bridge, they were so anxious to be in the borough and to make their presence known, they went and put the banner sign up. And then they found out that they were not supposed to do that, and then I found out that I had to come here and apologize to you.
And you did so nicely.
I did. And we then appeared before the zoning hearing board. The zoning hearing board granted us relief to have that temporary banner sign up during the transition of ownership, and that temporary signage expires, I think, in April or May. That sign will come down. And for both buildings, eventually, there will be a permanent signage package, but we're not up to that yet. Everybody's time is really being spent on getting the building built.
Questions? Nope. Karen?
So I'm just curious, I want to understand this. So all of this is primarily so that your location can be found?
It can be, so that it can be
Right.
found, so that it can be distinguished from the other construction site, and so people know where it is.
So forgive me for this, but wouldn't it be just as simple as you have directions, you cross the bridge, you turn right, and you look for... How do you miss it?
You gotta kind of tuck behind the other
Yeah, but you can
building.
see the
down
whole
below.
thing.
But it's under the
But it's
bridge.
down
You
below.
can't see it from the bridge
Directions.
surface.
You're going over, you turn right, you go down to the train tracks, and
It's easy to find once you find it a couple times.
Right.
But
It's behind the garages.
envision,
okay, no, that's fine. If that's how you guys are, in my mind, I was just looking at it and thinking that, you know, we have all of these things happening, you just give simple directions, and you look where all this work is happening. But I can see by the look on everyone's faces that it's much more complicated than that. So carry on.
think about rush hour in the morning or the afternoon, and people coming and deliveries coming, and
Yeah.
wanting people to get to where they have to get to without being confused.
Okay.
And that's the purpose for these temporary signs. It's important, and for all the other buildings that have been built in Conshohocken, we've had temporary signs, and the borough has been lenient in permitting those signs.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you, Russ.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
The next item on the agenda is interviewing applicants for board and commission vacancies. The first applicant is Mark Cottingham for the EAC. If you could come up, Mark. Good evening. So, Mark, why would you like to serve as a member on the EAC?
Well, I've been an environmental consultant since 2003. You can maybe tell from my accent, I'm not from here. I'm from the Midwest, Chicago. So I moved here in 2016. I currently work for an environmental consulting firm, ERM, out of Malvern, and I do a lot of consulting work for pipeline companies, so it's not local. But my previous work was a lot of local environmental issues, and I'd like to get back into that kind of thing, not as a consultant, but as a volunteer. So that's basically it. I have a background in a lot of wetland-related issues.
Yeah,
so,
I saw that, yeah.
I know a lot about, I guess, habitat restoration, stuff like that. But I'm also interested in the other work that the EAC does, that I read about online. So.
What is your passion when it comes to environmental issues and then local issues that you've experienced since you've been here?
I really like native plantings and habitat restoration, ecology is my main focus. I also think that renewable energy is very important as well, climate change, of course. So those issues, but I guess my expertise would be in more like habitat restoration. And I've done other volunteer stuff in addition to being a consultant, because it does get a little depressing to work for developers all the time, so I like to even that out a little bit. But I've done, when I lived in Minnesota, which I lived in for about 5 years before moving to the East Coast, I did a volunteer thing with the Department of Natural Resources there, where I monitored frog calls, which was very interesting.
You did say frog calls?
Yeah, frog calls.
Frog calls. So we monitored different species of frogs, and you can identify them by their calls. So we'd go out at night and listen to see what we could hear for frog calls, which was a very interesting opportunity. So I'm looking for similar things out here.
Tree frogs.
So
Tree frogs are great.
that's why I just think this would be a good opportunity to do that kind of thing.
How did you hear about the EAC?
Just through the website, I saw there were vacancies, so I thought it would be a good opportunity.
That's great.
Did you have a chance to attend any of the meetings or meet anyone?
I haven't. We've only lived here since 2016, and we just had a baby, so I'm pretty busy with that.
Congratulations. That will keep you busy.
Yeah. But that's another reason I want to get involved too, is kind of get her going and stuff like that. So I just think it'd be a positive thing.
Mark, do you have a sense of the any initiatives locally that you'd want to do around town?
Yeah, I read about what has been done with the rain barrels. I think that's a great thing. One thing that I have experience with is similar for stormwater is rain gardens. So I would be interested to see if any local businesses or landowners would be interested in doing something like that. So yeah, the stormwater management thing, and if I could incorporate any like native plantings, habitat stuff around town, that would be something I would be interested in.
And you did mention you have not been to a meeting or an ESA event. If you were approved, is that a commitment you're willing to make?
Absolutely.
They're pretty intense bunch.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm used to it.
Okay.
I'm one of them.
All right. Thank you.
Nice. Anyone else have any questions? Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for showing interest.
Mark.
The next person is Dana McNeil for the Planning Commission. Good evening, Dana. Okay. Well, I'll ask, why would you like to serve as a member on the Planning Commission?
So I've been living in Conshohocken for 15 years now. I've seen a lot of growth and development in the area, and I think it's very exciting. And my kids go to school here, and I love the district. I've worked in this district I'm a behavior therapist. I work with kids with special needs, and my husband has a small business here as well. So it would be very interesting.
Right. What do you see as the role of the Planning Commission?
And can you speak a little louder?
The role of the Planning Commission is to kind of oversee the different things that are being developed here. I'm not familiar so much with the zoning aspects of things, but just to kind of oversee different, whether it be the parks, recreation, sidewalks, just different things that I know that have been going into place here. That makes sense.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Have you volunteered in previous years at any other facility or situation? Yeah.
The only thing I've really volunteered for in Conshohocken is through the schools. I've done a lot of volunteering through the schools. I was always on the PTO and served on the different facilities for that, and just arranging fundraising events and things like that. I think that's probably about it.
Have you had a chance to talk with any of the people who sit on this planning commission? To understand?
No, we've got that.
Yeah, and she's told me lots of things over the years about the commission, and it's always been very interesting to me. So when this came up, I kind of wanted to go for it and, see
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Excellent.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. Thank you. Thanks for your time and thanks for your interest. The next person is Alex Rigney for Planning Commission.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
There can be 5. Well, here's this job.
I guess I'll ask the same question. Why would you like to serve on the Planning Commission?
Sure. So originally I'm from Northeast Philadelphia. I moved here with my wife 2.5 years ago. When we lived there, a big thing in Philadelphia, it's kind of difficult to be involved in municipal planning from a community aspect, especially in Northeast Philadelphia. It's more of a thing that the city council deals with a lot. So there weren't a lot of opportunities for that. And currently I've been working on my master's in nonprofit leadership. So during that process, we've been encouraged by our program at LaSalle University to try and focus on maybe an area of expertise that we'd want to focus on when we get out of the degree program. And two of those were municipal planning and community development for me. So it's really an opportunity for me to I'd like to be able to share what I've been able to learn so far. But at the same time, I know there's still a lot to learn. So I think that everything that I've done in the past, I don't know if you've all been able to see my resume, a lot of it's been kind of all over the place. Like community service organization I've run. I work in IT, even though I have a degree as a teacher. So I'm kind of all over the place with my education and expertise. But what I can say, though, is as I've been able to accrue all that information and expertise, I've been able to do all those positions well.
Okay. So you're in school for municipal planning and community development. We have positions open both in the planning and in zoning. What made you decide that Planning Commission would be the one that would be interesting for you?
Well, I think that particular aspect what the Planning Commission looks at in terms of investigating, advising, and recommending things that have to do with development and municipal planning is a little more interesting to me. I actually have had to do a project in school when we looked at making a social enterprise and had to do a lot of zoning work. And I can tell you it's not, no offense to anyone that does zoning work, to me it was not as interesting as the municipal planning portion of it. I think it's very interesting that the way you set up a town can actually either negatively or positively affect the businesses that are in it. So when you look at Conshohocken, the way that's set up, It's actually very walkable. It's easy to get to a lot of the restaurants and bars. I'm 28 years old. I live in one of the apartment complexes. My wife and I can easily walk to one of the restaurants or bars for date night. It's real easy, and that is something that is very rare from where we come from in Northeast Philadelphia. You have to drive everywhere, which is not a great thing. So that's one of the reasons we moved here, and that's why I'm very interested in being a part of this commission, is because I think everything's been done very well here, and that there's a lot more that can be done in the borough.
So in your letter, you spoke about balancing our commercial development with our residential feel. What would be some of your ideas around that?
Well, when I put that in the letter, the reason I stated that is because I've been here for 2.5 years, and a lot of development's clearly going on. But when I looked at some of the borough's ordinances, one thing that really stuck out for me was that there's supposed to be a focus on a strong residential character in the borough. So I don't know, to be honest with you, off the top of my head, I don't have an idea of how we would continue that balance. I think that the way that the borough is currently set up it works. You have clearly a district where there's a lot of development for offices and business, and then you have a strong residential character at the north end of the borough. And I think that works very well. And clearly that's reflected in the comprehensive plan that was written just 2 years ago. So, I don't know if that clearly answers your question, but hopefully it does.
No, it's helpful, and since you've only lived in town 3 years, I want you to know some of these developments have been in planning stages for 17 years, that we didn't approve them all.
Certainly. Actually, so I actually was looking at Conshocken's revitalization plan. It's like 2011, I think it was written.
Right.
And it's actually very interesting to look back at it, because that's 9 years ago, and a lot of stuff that was in there as economic goals or development goals, a lot of it's actually been done. There's a couple of things that haven't, but it's very interesting how well the plan was stuck to.
Right.
One of the things we look at in the nonprofit sector a lot is talking about strategic planning, and I kind of see a parallel here with the municipal planning, where if you're not actually following the plan that you just spent all that time writing, you just wasted a lot of time. And
money.
That's a big, and money, exactly. And that's a big thing with strategic planning. The joke with the nonprofit sector is you spend 5 years potentially writing that plan to serve you for 10, and instead you just put it on the shelf and not do anything with it. So I see that as the same way you should be approaching municipal planning. When you go through this whole process of putting together a comprehensive plan, you should stick with it. And clearly it looks like from all the plans that have been written for Conshohocken in the past, a lot of those goals have been met and are in the process of being met, which is really impressive.
Okay. Anyone else have anything? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for
much.
coming in. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
And interest. The next person for applying for a position on the zoning board is Marlo Dowman. If you could come up, Marlo. Good evening. Okay, I'll ask that same question. Why would you like to serve as a member on the zoning commission or zoning board?
Hi, good evening. Yeah, so I'm really interested in housing issues, zoning issues, primarily because I used to work for a city housing authority. I practiced law in New York for about 9 years. I'm originally from this area, but I moved there for about 9 years, and then I moved back with my wife about 2 years ago. I find those issues really interesting. I know how much zoning can affect the character of a community. Not just today and tomorrow, but for decades for the residents. And so I'd really like to serve Conshohocken by helping the zoning board make fair, equitable decisions based on law, and also hearing out all the different voices and interests that are affected by them.
And how much do you know about the zoning laws?
I'm by no means a zoning expert in any
Okay.
way. I know the gist of them, but I didn't work in zoning issues. It was more construction matters that I worked on, as well as housing matters when I was an attorney. So it's related, but it showed me how important zoning and those related issues are to a community.
Thank you.
You're stumping.
No.
So, Marlo, what would be your top priority as a member on, I think you really basically answered most of it, but I know that you understand that, because you've said that already about following the law, because obviously you have to with zoning, and listening to the community also. Is there anything else that you would like to see or have a priority on with zoning?
I think it would be, first of all, understanding the legal issues involved. I think also fairness, listening to people, listening to the various interests, whether it's the developer or the residents in the area, the character of the community.
Right.
And then I think also just listening to different voices from the other members. I've spoken to the chairman, Rick Barton,
Right.
about the requirements and the responsibilities of members, and he sounds like someone who's been there for a long time, so I'd be interested in hearing from people who are more experienced than me as well.
Okay.
Could you tell us about your volunteering with the Doman International Institute and how you got involved with that?
Similar name.
Right.
Yeah, so that's actually a nonprofit that's about 2 years old. My father founded it, and basically what they do is they work with children with special needs. They go around the world, treat them with a specific method that was actually created by my grandfather. It's a long story there. We could spend.
It's interesting,
right?
yeah.
So they're actually based in Pennsylvania, but the scope of the work is international. And I've been helping out because I don't practice law anymore professionally, but I'm licensed. I help them with legal issues, and I also help as the treasurer. So that's just some volunteer work that I do.
That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's
Thanks.
great. Does anyone else have any questions? Okay, thank you. And how's that baby?
He's doing great.
That's
3
good.
weeks old.
3 weeks. And you made it.
I did, yeah.
There you go.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Council, there's no motion on these interviews this evening. There are 2 vacancies on the EAC, 1 on the Planning Commission and 2 on the Zoning Hearing Board. So there have been numerous interviews that have happened to date, and they will all be on an agenda in the near future for consideration.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is consider approving ordinance 02-2020, amending powers and operational procedure of the EAC.
So the process of incorporating an ordinance legislatively has multiple steps to it. So any legislative change is the authority of Borough Council only. So this is in front of you this evening for discussion purposes, which is why it's on a work session agenda. So once we've discussed it amongst the elected officials, any of those revisions or suggestions would be going back to the administration, and we'll finalize a version. With all ordinances, they then have to go back on an agenda for advertisement. It's then advertised, and then it is back on an agenda for a vote. So there is a process. This is the beginning of that process. The suggestions and revisions that are in this ordinance have been communicated amongst all of us at this point. So I think it's reflective of changes that you've requested. Some of the revisions are clarifying points. It's clarifying that EAC is advisory to Borough Council. It's clarifying that they coordinate with other agencies, committees, and boards at the request of Borough Council. They make recommendations only to Borough Council. Council has the authority to assign other duties or responsibilities if applicable. It stipulates procedures for removal of members and defines malfeasance. It clarifies that Borough Council sets their budget and/or approves additional requests for expenses. It clarifies that the EAC does not have the authority to apply for, obtain, or accept funding without the prior approval of Borough Council. And it clarifies the creation of subgroups requires the approval of Borough Council prior to their establishment.
Does anyone have any questions?
No. No, I think this all came about as the EAC's been around for a while. and different things have been coming up, and there are lots of gray zones that we've identified, which then can lead to confusion. And really, I think this combined effort from the EAC and from council to do some clarification in the ordinance will help the EAC be successful as we move forward and help us support them in their success.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you, Steph.
You're welcome. If there's no further discussion, then this will be on your agenda on the 18th for advertisement. Okay. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is Manager Matters. Ms. Checo?
The first item is to consider appointing housing rehabilitation program consultants. So this went through the bidding process. The low bid for the intake coordinator was Nancy Nugent, who has extensive experience in client processing and income determination. There were 4 responses received for environmental testing. There was 2 responses that had similar low costs. We currently work with DTEC Environmental Testing. Our CDBG and home program operator, which is Chris Stetler, is recommending that you appoint Nancy Nugent as the intake coordinator and DTEC Environmental Testing as the environmental consultant to the housing rehab program. These would both be for a 3-year period.
Do you need a motion?
No, I do not. The motion will be on the 18th agenda. Okay. So gives you an opportunity. There were charts that were provided which lays out the bids that were received. If you have any questions on those over the course of the next 2 weeks, please let me know. We'll get answers from Chris Stetler. It is extremely well-run program at this point with these consultants that are in place, which is why she is recommending that we stay status quo. Okay? The next item is to consider approving Resolution 2020-05, which states the borough's intent to participate in the TCDI grant program and to provide a local match. You've already authorized administration to work jointly with West Conshohocken to submit the grant. The grant was submitted. We are the co-applicant. We wrote a letter of support, and we helped compile the application, and it has been submitted. The TCDI requires that a resolution be issued. That resolution did not need to be finalized prior to the submission of the grant. It's due at the end of March. So the resolution in front of you is for consideration this evening so that we can get it over to West Conshohocken and they can submit it, so we're not missing any deadlines. Just to point out that as discussed previously, it stipulates that the TCI planning grant match would be a maximum for the borough of $20,000, which we have allocated in the capital budget. So this is just clarifying all items that have already been discussed and formalizing it in a resolution.
So the motion is to approve Resolution 2020-05, stating the borough's intent to participate in the TCDI grant program and provide a local match.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have no other matters.
Okay. Mayor Aronson?
Thank you. We had a busy couple of weeks, so I have a few items. Okay. Wanted to say thank you to the students at Conshohocken Elementary School who, with the PTO, put on the annual Conshohocken spaghetti dinner last week. The third graders took orders from all the guests and served the food, so it was pretty awesome. As you can see, it was also an absolutely packed house, so a really big success. So congratulations to them. And then last Wednesday, the 26th, there was an identity theft protection event at Leland Mansion with Detective Walter from the Conshohocken Police Department as the main speaker. Through these informational classes and our annual shredding event in the fall, we hope that this adds to the police department's commitment to helping educate residents about how to keep their identities as safe as possible. So thank you to Detective Walter, who took the evening to not only present but take quite a few questions from the audience. So that was a really important event that we hope to do more of. And then Yoga Home hosted a QPR training through the Montgomery County Access Services and the Montgomery County Mobile Crisis Unit last Sunday. QPR is an entry-level training open to the general public to help them recognize signs of those in distress, how to have a conversation with them, and where to refer them for professional services. We have had 2 previous events at the community center and are already working on our next one. So we hope this important information and conversation is spreading through the community. Please stay tuned to my social media for updates, and I will certainly bring them up here as they come up. And then finally, I want to give a thank you to our own Officer Perez. Chief Metz received a letter from someone who he helped a few weeks ago. A letter mentioned over and over again that Officer Perez went above and beyond the call of duty with his response and follow-up. This is an aspect of customer service that we hear about Officer Perez specifically quite a bit. So a big thank you to him, and if you see him around, let him know. And that's it.
Bob?
Yeah, I have a couple things. I gave a handout to council
We saw.
that Mr. Bieber passed over.
Yes.
So maybe this should go to the parking task force, submit it to them,
That's a good idea.
and we can take a look at it.
Sure.
Also, I was asked, and this is a question for the chief, I'm not going to mention any names, but a resident asked me about the 5K race, where it's going to be held at. Is it on the east side or the west side, he asked me.
It's the same route that it normally is,
Okay.
which will be on the west side. It'll start and end in Suffolk Park.
Okay.
It's the 25th of April.
Like every year.
Yeah.
And then he asked about the St. Patty's 5K.
That starts, it kicks off at 1 o'clock and it precedes the parade.
Oh, okay.
Which
So
route?
It's on Fast-
So
It's on Fast
it's
Street.
all on Fast Street.
Okay.
It doesn't leave Fast Street.
That's what I thought. Okay, I just want to relay it back to a certain person. Huh? I'm not saying anything.
Did we
Thank
get
you.
anywhere looking at a potential 5K route on the east side?
We have not evaluated a potential route on the east side, but we have reached out to the Little League to determine if we can coordinate schedules the day of that race so that Little League would start later and the race would conclude prior to the game starting, so there wouldn't be the congestion that was a concern.
Okay.
But we will look at east side.
Yeah, I think that we
We've
still should drive
discussed
We
that.
should have
Yeah.
one that starts like
Right.
at the 8th.
Yep, and then goes
Or
from
the
there.
or the B field.
Or the big field.
Yeah, either
Yep.
one. Okay. Anita?
The Montgomery County Boroughs Association had one of their annual dinners last Thursday night. It was held at Ursinus College. They have built a brand-new student center that is out of this world. And if you get the chance, please go visit it. It's really wonderful. And they did it, what they did was they took the old firehouse and built onto it. And of course, they have a brand-new firehouse that sits right next to it. But the campus is really nice, and it's worth going up and seeing it. They left a lot of the old brick out inside and everything, and it was really nice. And our next dinner is April 23rd, everybody.
And where is that?
Don't know yet. It's in Lansdale, I believe, or it's either in Lansdale or Souderton. I think it's in Souderton this time. So I'll bring more information for that later. So, and that's it.
Jane?
Well, I wanted to thank Lauren today. We had a special event at the community center. The kindergarten children from Conshohocken Elementary were walked up, and Lauren put together a group of seniors that got to meet with the children and read to them for Read Across America. And it was a really great outpouring. I think everyone had a wonderful time, and we're looking forward to doing more joint events with our seniors and with the children from Conshohocken Elementary. We're so lucky to have our community center nearby our elementary school, and the school can use that as an asset. So I think that partnership is going to really flourish under Lauren's direction. And also for the Centennial Celebration for Marywood Park, it's going to be November 7th. We have some more details. It'll be from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. And right now we're looking at having a Civil War reenactment with some rifle display. I got the clearance from the chief, so that was good. And we will have a centennial birthday party for all of our seniors that are over 100 years. So we think it'll be a special day for our residents, both in the past and current. and it should be a fun day, so.
And it'll be located primarily at the Park House?
At the Park House, yes.
Tina?
Yeah, so we had a Friends of Conshohocken Parks meeting last night, and as you all know, that's our fundraising nonprofit, and we're starting to really get some momentum under our feet. So what the Friends of Conshohocken Parks is asking of council is to give the approval to use funds out of our account to purchase a banner sign, basically being able to promote awareness to this nonprofit in the borough. The board will plan to walk in the St. Patrick's Day Parade on the 14th to help create more visibility within the community and engage directly with the residents, business owners, and visitors. And we're requesting a banner to not exceed $100. The fund currently has $5,214 of donations there, so we have the money to cover it. We just need council's approval to purchase that banner.
Everyone, any questions on that? Any concerns?
No.
Everyone's good? I think you have permission.
Okay. The second request that they have is in order to march in the St. Patrick's Day Parade, they wanted to know, could they walk with council as a group, or would they need to sign up as a separate group for the parade?
Sign up as a separate group.
Yeah, so that they can be distinguished and people can see them and not just us.
There you go.
Because a lot of people don't know who we are.
So we can have them walk in
They
the,
could walk right behind
Like,
us. though,
like,
couldn't
yeah,
they?
like right behind us.
Yeah.
right,
So
with
they-
their banner.
The AOH is the entity that takes all the requests for entities that
Oh,
want to
okay.
walk, so it's
Oh.
not the borough that does that.
Okay.
So but we can, on behalf of the Friends of Conshohocken Parks, let them know that the entity would like to march in the parade, and we will make sure they know that.
Correct. So we'll fill out the paperwork for the AOH. And then we can make a request that they are close to us
Close
as part
to
of the
council,
borough.
so it's.
Right.
Behind the
So people
candy
get it,
truck.
yes.
Yep.
So who are you going to walk with, council or the?
I'm a council member.
Just a point of clarification for the motion, we do need a motion on the money. So the motion would just be
Okay.
to approve the request of the Friends of Conshohocken Parks for the purchase of a banner of not to exceed $100.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
Great, and then we'll help coordinate with the AOH.
That's it for, yes.
Okay. Mike?
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, one more.
That's okay. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry,
Go,
one
go,
more.
Go, go.
The momentum continues, and on March 19th, my papers are all messed up. Yeah, March 19th, we're having a fundraiser at Snap Pizza. So Snap Pizza has partnered with Friends of Conshohocken Parks, and they will give proceeds from the pizza purchases to the,
Yeah.
so that's one of our first big fundraisers.
You know, since you're on the Friends of Conshohocken Parks, I have to say that Holly is doing a great job with social media, getting posts up and information about Friends of Conshohocken Park. She's doing a really great job and putting some really interesting articles up. So,
Yeah, so we have a very active Facebook page right
Yes.
now. We're excited
Yes.
about that.
okay. Mike?
Well, the parade is coming up. I just want to know that we have enough candy this year.
We actually ordered double what we had of last year, so make sure you spread it out as you walk down the street. That's
Okay.
Oh, we're not allowed to eat it?
No.
Do we need to put, make something bigger to haul it down Fayette Street in sometime?
We need Dell to tell us, we need Dell to tell us to slow down.
Okay.
Yes.
We'll make sure he knows that.
I actually think we should have,
When we get to CVS, he needs to give us a check-in.
Okay.
I'm even thinking that we should have a bag that there's an amount you have for that block.
Bring your borough back.
And then, anyway, I really,
let's
because
fill the borough
it's hard
bags.
to
That'd be great.
rationalize it.
We'd never run out of candy.
Ration.
Can we get more chocolate than hard candy?
It's already ordered.
They said that the
Too
last
late.
time.
Too late.
I don't know.
Last year, there was There was a good amount of chocolate in it, because I was excited.
What?
I was excited about it, the chocolate.
And we have barriers
We
that are
do.
going up this year?
Correct.
All the way,
Oh.
the whole parade route? Question?
Oh, my.
Yes, it should be
That
an
was a
interesting
problem last
deployment
With the
prior to the parade.
Yeah.
Look
I
at Gunny
remember-
sitting back there
yeah.
smiling.
Okay.
Public Works, our emergency management crew, fire, yes. They are working through that process.
And thank you to all of them.
Yes.
Mike, that's it? You're good? Okay. Karen?
Okay, so I do have a few things. We had advertised for a parking ordinance from Maple Street up to West Third from the 100 block. What I'd like to propose that instead of an ordinance, that we approach this as a resolution, and so that we could do this on a temporary basis. So the long and the short of it is that there's 2-hour parking limit, but it's set for 7 days, from 6 to 6. We have the construction that's still going on, and that's been kind of the crux of some of this parking issue. So I'm thinking if we look at this and just make it, again, by resolution and for a time period of X, and determining, and maybe it's 6 months, whatever makes the most sense after we do some kind of evaluation.
I think, I agree with you on the temporary. We can always go back and make it permanent if it works, but we can't do it the opposite way.
Right.
So,
So have we received feedback from when we posted this ordinance and the letters that we've been sent?
Right, these letters were just released this week. I don't know if you've gotten others, but I have had, the residents are happy about, as you would expect, but I did, from the businesses, the concern of how that would impact them on the weekends. So having it 2-hour parking at that time.
So businesses like restaurants?
we
Would
think
you
they
think they would want to turn their tables over?
Right.
every 2 hours?
The expectation is that does happen during the week, because it's generally your office crowd that's coming and going, but on the weekends, people really spend more time.
And who's going to enforce it on the
And then we
weekend?
want them driving?
We want them Ubering at that point.
Maybe they have lots of desserts. I don't know.
Who's going to enforce it on the weekend?
You're already talking about guppies, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What else
That's
is
the
there?
only- That's it.
On a Sunday?
Well,
On the 2 hour on a Sunday on the weekend?
Because then you don't have the construction.
I mean, I don't think it's a bad idea to pilot, do something that's not
But
as permanent.
Right, but I think the idea of the time limit, even on the weekend for the residents, is a great thing.
Right.
And it is a residential neighborhood.
That's true, but right now what's happening is, in large part, is the construction vehicles on Saturdays.
Right, but I'm sure that, I would assume that they've had issues on the weekend anyway.
Well, it's been exacerbated.
So what stops
I mean,
them
with
from Friday and
guppies.
Saturday going to guppies after the homework?
Yeah.
What stops?
Going to guppies after.
Well, I think the point here is that we've already agreed and we've already advertised and we sent letters out that we think the parking task force has presented a valid
Right.
suggestion. The question that I think Councilmember Totino is asking is whether it becomes permanent immediately or if you do a temporary trial period
Right.
and then determine if you are then going to make it permanent. So
So how long do we expect the construction right now to last for down at that end?
I mean, depending on weather and external factors and.
Right.
I don't know, 18 months.
Right, so if we,
Years.
But once the garage is done, which is what they're working on, then they can park in the garage.
There is the notion that once the site is open and the garage is included, that
So-
construction vehicles and construction workers will move into parking on the site.
so I would suggest a year.
Can you do a year?
No.
6 months?
No.
6
No.
months?
That's too long.
No, you can do 60 days max.
60 days.
By resolution, yeah.
But can we do,
They're experimental, remember? You're not,
okay, can we do a,
you can do a
and
sunset clause on the ordinance, though. You can, you know, we can sort of do whatever you want.
so we could do something else to make it like a year? Like
Yeah, I
the
mean,
ordinance?
I actually think that with what Britt has advertised already, if you wanted to add a sunset clause to that ordinance, you wouldn't have to re-advertise, you could do it at your next meeting, if you wanted to.
Ordinance that's currently up for consideration is the fact that the ordinance expires on a certain date.
Yeah.
And then if
It'll
it
be
expires, and it actually ends up being a positive for the neighborhood regardless of any construction,
Right.
you would then have to just go through the process.
Yeah, we do a new ordinance.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you'll recall, when you did the experimental regulations before, we'd have to do it like,
Yeah,
we did it a bunch
Right.
of times.
Okay.
But
So
if
that's
you're gonna
what
do
I-
something like this and it's already been advertised, do a year sunset clause and see how it works.
Is everyone okay with a year time?
Yep.
So that's a real simple addition I'll
Okay.
make, no problem.
That satisfy the feedback you've gotten from the letters?
I think so. I'm just wondering if 1 year might actually be too long. But
Well, again, it's up for vote on the 18th. So if there's anything else you want us to bring back, but it has been advertised, we'll go forward with this concept of sunset clause and then
And a
from
resolution
there.
can't be 120 days.
No, it can't. So that's a specific provision pulled from the Borough Code that lets you do these experimental regulations. It's a very specific time period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, the next thing is, Chief Metz had done a speed study when you cross the bridge from West Elm going into the section that's referred to as Cunningtown. We're talking about revisiting and doing that study again, just repeating it, with respect to, the speed that vehicles are traveling. Excuse me, then I also had a meeting with the members of the Grand Condominium Board, and a couple of different takeaways from that. One is the concern, obviously, there's a lot of traffic, but there's difficulty in pulling out of their condominiums and having the block being boxed. So I've had conversations with Chief Metz about that, so we're going to address having someone on site and figuring out what we're going to do, and also evaluating what the situation is. I don't know if you want to add any more comments to that.
Yeah, well, those issues are, they're not making them up. That happens. It's all related to volume that in the morning on West Elm Street, no one's speeding there.
That's for sure.
They're not speeding.
But, these things happen. There are some challenges to it.
Right.
As far as, us. I was down there today looking at it. It's just where to put a police car right now, anywhere down there is difficult.
Right.
And, the fact that, the enforcement aspect of it, the traffic is tight there now anyway, and it's limited. But there are some things that we can do. So, yes.
Okay.
We'll look at it.
Okay, I think, I have too many scribbled sheets. I think that was it.
Chief Metz?
That's it for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a couple things. I was invited by the St. Matt's seniors. They've been after me to their luncheon meeting that they have once a month at the church. They've been after me for a while. And the mayor kind of encouraged me
Good
to
job.
make the meeting. So I did, and it was great. And I got to reconnect with some people I haven't seen in a long time, and I got to do a little presentation on how they could better protect themselves against fraud and stuff like that. And the other thing is, recently there was cameras installed around the bathroom concession stand area of Sutcliffe Park. Last week we had some vandalism inside the bathroom, which has been a common occurrence in the last year or so. but we have some names, because we had a good video, and we look forward to meeting the knuckleheads very shortly.
Yes.
And hopefully get the word out that
Right.
surveillance works, and
That's great.
the nonsense gotta stop.
Right.
That's great.
That's wonderful.
Yes,
That's great.
Thank you.
thank you. Okay. Anyone, that's it? Anyone for public comment? Can you come up and state your name
Who are you?
and address?
Donald Martin, 303 East Sixth Avenue. In the morning time, at coming down from St. Mary's Church into the train station area, the parking lot coming out from the condos there, a couple cars doesn't like to ease and pay attention to what's coming down the hill. And I'm afraid one of these mornings, someone's going to get, going to run into a SEPTA bus, or someone's going to get seriously hurt there in the morning. And then second of all, every morning about 6:45, a gentleman likes to jump over the fence between both sides of the tracks. So if you're coming from Philadelphia and coming into Conshohocken and outbound going into Philadelphia, a gentleman every morning about 6:45 likes to jump over the fence, and other numerous mornings also. And my concern is someone's going to get hurt down there. And the gentleman does come out from the condo area sometimes. It will depend upon what way he runs sometimes. I'm only saying it because I noticed it, and I'm concerned about it, and I'm afraid something's going to happen. And we need safety down there at the train station. Signs are posted, and they come in, they ask us for support, and it's very hard to see that happen every morning, and feel like just jumping off the bus and start screaming at cars to watch for their safety, for the public and everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Donald.
I'm Jim Dunlap from Jack Francis Catering, 300 Maple Street, another business in that area. We already have the construction people parking in front of our building during the day. You know, generally, there aren't a lot of people in the area. We have funerals there several times a month. Our people are having a hard time finding a place to park. If you put this ordinance in place, all you're going to do is make the people who are parking there park farther down. They're going to be parking on both up and down Maple Street up to 4th, 5th, and 6th Avenues. And that's our concern. Our other concern is we're going to get tickets for our people going to funerals, you know, who are mainly Conshohocken residents. So I'd like you to keep that in mind as you're considering this ordinance or resolution or whatever you're going to do with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is there a way that if they're having like a funeral or something that they can hand out? No, you're already shaking your head.
Well,
The
that's up
spots
to the
might already
undertaker.
be occupied at that point anyway.
Yeah. Just a thought.
Okay.
Pretty
I
bad if you're
appreciate
a
it
funeral and get a
because
ticket.
Yeah, I know.
trying to get
It's
creative is almost all we have left.
Right, right.
What?
I'm just saying, I appreciate you saying that because there aren't available spots. All we can do is get creative, try to
Right,
figure out what
yeah.
we can do. And
Right.
it's,
Get that parking lot, make them park in a parking lot. Instead of parking all over the street, all over the avenues. That's what we have to do. We have to force them into that lot.
And if the construction was in Philadelphia, that's what they would
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
do.
yeah,
They would have
yeah.
to rent a lot and they would have to park there.
They're paying $30, $40 a day out there in
Yeah.
the parking lot in Philly.
Yep.
You know?
And they're right on Broad Street building the same company's building a big, by the Academy of Music.
Hi.
Hi.
Sorry.
No problem. Scott Langstein, 200 West Elm Street. I don't know if you can answer this question, but just in consideration for the advertising signs that he wants to put up, the banners for 7 Tower Bridge, like the poles, when I guess they're vacant, they don't have signs, is that something the borough can utilize? I don't know if you've utilized in the past.
Tina's mind was working.
And whether if you approve the other poll, that's something you can get in the agreement that you can have access to that at a later time.
You're right where I was.
Okay. And then just as far as the parking ordinance for Maple Street, I support making it temporary. I think that's a good idea to try it out, see how things go, because maybe it resolves once this construction is done. And lastly, I just want to thank Karen for meeting with us. It was very productive, and I appreciate it. And thank you, Chief Metz, for starting to look into West Elm, because that's certainly a challenge for us, getting out of the complex and all the, I guess, driving violations that occur there. So we appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Meeting adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.